The One. Copyright 1937 by Lillian de Waters. And the glory which thou gavest me, I have given them, that they may be one. Preface. The first textbook in America on spiritual metaphysics with application to the healing of human problems was published some 50 years ago. And since the publication of that book, multitudes of writers have used their pens, elucidating many of the deep things therein expressed, and have set forth such fuller revelation as appeared to their consciousness. 19 years ago, the one now writing these words published her first book on spiritual metaphysics under the title Journeying Onward. And at that time and in that book delivered the basic principles that are to be found in this latest book, The One. During the intervening years, the author has written and published over 20 different books treating the subject, the science of truth, from various angles and for students and readers of various degrees of understanding. In her 3 latest books called the Kingdom series, the author presented more clearly than in any of her previous writings the finished kingdom, reality, or the heavenly world, the Christ within, the nothingness of the personal self, and the understanding that may be demonstrated in his name, the practice of truth. Now, in this latest work, The One, the student will find a delightful union and gathering, as it were, of all the paramount facts contained in her complete set of writings, making this book a most valuable book for study and for meditation. In the book Journeying Onward, which was published in 1908, and which was one of the first books of its kind to be placed in the market in America, the author set forth in simple fashion the nothingness of personality, the nothingness of belief, the nothingness of sin, sickness, discord, and the oneness of being as follows. Quote, "It is our ignorance of God that makes us believe that we lose health and life. The right understanding of God proves that man is forever at one with him, reflecting all that is in him and nothing else. The Master came to save us from believing in sin, sickness, death, and those who are following in his steps are destroying these conditions as he did, and are giving God the glory. Sickness seems real to the sufferer, yet it is not a reality, a truth, a right or normal condition of man. The only devil that one may know is the belief of evil in one's own thought. Prayer is realization of possession. As children of God, man possesses what God possesses. By scientifically understanding these spiritual truths, we are brought into such a consciousness of the allness of God that we behold and receive the manifestation of our desires or prayers. We try to see so clearly the scientific truth that good fills all space, that all errors or mistakes go out of our thought and consequently their manifestations disappear. We strive to be in tune, in touch, or harmony with divine love, so that we may behold the finished work." End quote. What greater vision could one have today than to behold the one life, the one power, the one presence, the one being? Surely this would demonstrate the love of God, the oneness of man in the kingdom of heaven on earth. To see the oneness of man transcends malice, jealousy, strife, war, and blesses mankind with the divinity of heaven. Now, year after year, day after day, we are all approaching nearer and nearer the actual understanding of truth. And naturally, we are all therefore thinking, feeling, and speaking more and more alike on this subject. This is in itself a demonstration of the oneness of man. What one sees, another sees. What one is having revealed to him, another is also having revealed to him. Only a short time ago, there arose in our midst a man of daring and skill, a man so detached from any sense of person or personality that he turned his back to any praise and worship directed to his personal self. A praise and a glory directed to him because, with his silent winged companion, he had triumphed over the dark waters of the Atlantic. As soon as he had demonstrated his vision, others came forward with the same vision and intent. And today, we read in books, magazines, and papers the thoughts and expressions of those who are visioning spiritual heights, visioning the transcension of war, of evil, of death. More clearly, year by year, day by day, this vision will continue until mankind forgets to struggle, forgets to be selfish, forgets to think of personality, but lovingly all will understand that what blesses one blesses all, that truth is impersonal, that truth, when viewed correctly, is loved, worshipped, and understood by all alike. The insight of the hour is the joyous recognition of the nothingness of personality and the allness of the one being, the recognition of the unity and the oneness of man. Laying aside all notion of self and of others, we now bring our willing hearts to worship at the feet of him who gloriously ordained that they may be made perfect in one. Written by the author. The One by Lillian de Waters, Chapter 1. The Nothingness of Personality. At one time, while this world was considered material, there came into it a voice making the daring statement, "There is no matter, all is mind." Slowly truth comes to this world as though this, in itself, were a device of redemption. From the allness of matter to the nothingness of matter and the allness of mind, thence from the allness of mind to the nothingness of mind and the allness of truth, is the path of device to this world. In the superb view of the heavenly world as here and now, and the nothingness of both matter and mind, what might be the next step in illumination? Is there anything else separating man from truth except the belief in the reality of matter and mind? After we perceive the nothingness of the world material and the world mental, we can open our eyes to still a larger perception. We can perceive the nothingness of personality. To perceive the nothingness of personality brings speedy deliverance, for it is the angel carrying healing in its wings. It is the angel of light. It is the angel of the dawn of a new day. In the glorious vision of the One, is there any room for jealousy, for strife, slander, misunderstanding, unforgiveness? Is there any room for teacher and student, for one to be superior to another? Is there anything that I can take from you or you can take from me? Let us open our hearts wide and wider still to appreciate this stupendous message of the nothingness of personality, and let it spread like wildfire from east to west and from pole to pole until the whole earth is compelled through insight and devotion to worship the One. Let scientist and Catholic kneel together in this vision of one being, one lover of all, loving Jew and Gentile alike. Let the races calling themselves the black, the white, the Indian, bow down at this altar and see themselves as God sees them. Think you that God sees the color of a man's skin? Think you that God is concerned whether a church or a sect of people is called Methodist or Baptist? Think you that the one sees differences? That the one sees pairs of opposites? What a glorious day at hand as this great fire of insight begins to blaze and extend over this plain, and man begins to see as God sees, and man begins to look upon another as himself, for in the vision of the one can there be another? This is a tremendous light, which if seen, accepted, and practiced, will open to one the peace and joy of heaven. Of what use would it be for one to affirm, "There is but one being," if at the same time he felt hurt because of what someone said about him unkindly, or if he felt himself unjustly treated by another? Our great need is to practice our vision, to practice our understanding. If the one is the all, and there is no personality, does not this automatically discharge these deceptions called disease, fear, hate, grief? Can God be diseased? Can God fear? Can God hate? Can God be sorry? The one is not emotional, but is the stillness of spirit, unchangeable perfection. Taking away the sense of personality through insight, through devotion, comes to one as though the veil of the temple had been rent in twain, as though one expected the very ones in their graves to rise and walk about in this plain as though death had never been. In this transcendent vision of the One, we see only a great family of brethren, each the same life, the same substance, the same being. This living fire from heaven bursts into our hearts as though a sheet of lightning were seen and felt to strike us with its power and glory, touching us with its glow, its ecstasy, and its wonder. When you believe evil about another, where is your vision? When you feel injury from another, where is your vision? It is taught by the sages of the East that to be robbed by another is to be a robber in one's own heart. To be killed by another is to be a murderer oneself, which means that if one actually knows and asserts the oneness of all being, he will not see another, but will see the one self only, and herein is his protection. There are statements of truth to be held in the consciousness in priceless jewels, such as the promises of the 91st Psalm and the promises of the mighty Jesus. One might, for instance, be placed in seeming danger, his life imperiled, yet if he would declare and know, "Nothing shall by any means harm you," and let this heavenly promise leap from him as living fire from heaven, as veritable truth itself, he shall be immune, he shall not be harmed. Once one had a weapon pointed at him ready to do him harm, and at that instant he had the vision of the one being, of this man who held the weapon, and of himself as being the same substance, the same being. Fearlessly and courageously he asserted this silently to himself, with no sense of personality, and the uplifted hand of the man who held the weapon remained in that position, nor could it be moved without the consent of the one who knew the truth. The knower of the truth has complete sovereignty. A man enjoying the charm of an evening's beauty and a high-powered automobile was suddenly confronted by a policeman who gave him a card with certain accusations against him. The driver, who had harmed no one, felt immediately the presence of the one and the only being. At that very instant the card was snatched from his hand by the policeman, who turned quickly and sped away. This latter example is not set forth as proof that man should disobey material law, but as proof that when man sees as God sees, he is safe. This is the secret place of the Most High. Now, if one permits himself to act so as to injure in any way the name or character of another, he is injuring himself, for he is seeing another, whereas there is no other. With such double vision, he finds the injury that he would do another, returning upon himself, because one self is the only self there is. On the other hand, one should look upon another, believing that this other has done an injustice or harm to him. He himself is the guilty one. For were his vision fixed on reality, he would see no other. He would see no falsity. He would see no injury. He would see only truth as taking place. Let us ask ourselves, is there anything that another can take from me? Is there anyone who can steal from me my joy, my peace, my love, my faith, my understanding? We can but answer truly if we base our decision upon the fact of life that God is all there is, that there is but one presence, one power, one substance, one life, one being. The cry today, as never before, is on the instant. The world wants something that will permit the voice to travel instantly from one side of the globe to another, a means that will transport one directly from one part of the country to another, a way that will heal another quickly of all manner of diseases, a path that will deliver immediately from dangers. What can you announce that would be nearer this end than to know the nothingness of personality and the allness of the one being? Can you see that the whole being, the great farce of evil, rests upon the belief of personality, the belief that man can be separate from God, that man can think other than God, that man can have life apart from God? If everyone on earth were seeing no distinction, no separateness, no being other than the one, think what instantaneous emancipation this would bring, how the millennium would be in our midst. No one with a grain of understanding would accuse God of being sick, or of being sinful, or of dying, yet how many are accusing man of these very things? Therefore, to blot from one's vision one's sense of personality delivers instantaneous illumination, inspiration, healing. This is actually practicing the presence, so that if one were looking at an appearance called the devil incarnate, and he could know but one being and the nothingness of any other, he would see before him an angel of light. You have heard many times the scientific statement that there is but one man. Still, you may not yet clearly understand its deep significance. It means that inherently all men are the same. It means that actually there is no difference between one man and another. It means that God sees all men alike. He maketh the sun to shine on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. Matthew 5, verse 45. This one being is the Father, soul, self, I am. The Holy Ghost is the light that illumines, inspires, radiates, and mirrors forth the Son, the perfect man. As the Father, self, soul is infinite, and the Holy Ghost, the illuminator, the divine reflector, is infinite, so also the Son, the reflection called perfect man, is infinite, and is known on earth as sons and daughters, or children of God. It can be clearly seen that because of the infinity of God the Father and of God the Holy Ghost, we will also have the infinity of God the Son, or perfect man. Thus, man is seen in infinite number, yet understood as one being. Jesus, the pivotal character, the miracle-working presence, stood in the midst of men proclaiming, "And the glory which thou gavest me, I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one." If one could but place a loving hand upon the shoulder of the man digging a ditch, there could be felt a certain warmth, a loving presence, soul answering soul, or if one placed this loving touch upon the prisoner in a dungeon, this man's heart would leap, his love would respond, for in every breast abides the same spark, in every life is found the same substance, and in every heart there beats the same love. Thus, we recognize the oneness of man. O Spirit, love divine, I worship thee alone, and besides thee I see and claim no other. I acknowledge thy glory as my glory, thy light as my light, thy life as my life, thyself as myself, as thyself, myself, the one and only self. I speak forth the word of eternal reality, the word of freedom, of unity, of power, and of glory. Let him who feels that he is hereby losing his identity hearken closer. Let him who feels that he cannot lose himself listen to the divine decree. Except ye be converted, ye shall not enter into the kingdom. He that loseth his life shall find it. Only he who lays down his life is able to take it up again. And how is one to lose his life, to lose himself? By seeing the nothingness of personality. He who lays down his sense of a selfhood apart from God rises up conscious of himself as he is. Personality is man as he appears, that is, his habits, his beliefs, his thoughts, his grammar, his clothes, etc. Impersonality is man as he is. Truth is impersonal, and man is like truth. Man is therefore impersonal. Suppose one thinks, I am a great man. I have students to sing my praises over this world, asserting that I am one who imparts truth to others. My name has gone over this planet as a name of importance, as the name of one who knows and understands. What manner of man, think you, is this? The man who has lost his life is the man who cares not for himself or his personal name, but his care, his love rests wholly upon the one, like the story related in The Christ Within, of the man who performed miracles wherever he walked, yet he would not allow his name to be known, and was spoken of only as the Holy Shadow. When a man loses his life, what is it that he actually loses? Must he give up his home, his family, his money? Does it mean that he must renounce his joy, his business, his eating, his sleeping? No, he is not asked to give up any of these things. Let him give up his sense of a personal self. Let him lay aside the self that he believes is called John Doe, and take up that self with a capital S that is truth. Not only need he have this vision for himself, but such vision must be large enough, full enough to encompass the whole universe, so that he does not see persons as units, as separate beings, but he sees unity, he sees the one only. No matter how many persons are standing before him, he sees the one as the all of each. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. Suppose one is asleep, and in his dream he finds himself stranded on an island. Vainly he looks around for a boat, but there is none in sight. He is without shelter, water, or provisions. Now, the man on the bed and the man representing him in the dream correspond to the true self and the personality. If the dream character on the island could but know the nothingness of himself, could but give up his life, dream life, such life as he would give up would be nothing in itself. For the personality stranded on the island is not a real existence, but is a suppositional one. there would be no actual process taking place, no actual change, nothing really happening for all the time the self would be on the bed and not on the island. Thus, when the one known as John Doe gives up his personality, this is not an actual procedure, for what he gives up is his belief in a man of matter, a dream substance, a man who is separate from the real being, when there is no such man. But he goes through his device, this change that is no change, this act that is no act, this awakening that is no awakening, so that he will consciously know the truth about himself. When the man wakens and finds himself in the bed, then he knows the nothingness of the man on the island. And when man on earth comes into the consciousness of one being and his identity with this being, then he knows and understands the nothingness of the man of sin, sickness, and ignorance. With the light of understanding, we see then how futile it is to hold to personality, to believe in the personality, dream, man, rather than in the true, changeless man of God. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain who build it. Psalm 127, verse 1. Except, you see, acknowledge and practice that which you actually are, your labor to bring success, health, harmony, power, glory to a man of dust, a dream man, a personality man, is all in vain. It is time all of us who claim to have a grain of true understanding cast aside now and forever all criticism, fear, condemnation of others. We do not criticize and condemn God, and there is nothing else, so we assert. Then whom are we condemning? The man on the island. Now how foolish it would be for us to look at that man stranded on the island and blame him for his position. The man we would be judging would not be there. He is somewhere else, innocent that very instant, and our ignorant thoughts would but fall back upon ourselves. Likewise, when we blame others, when we fear others, when we see others, we are but placing fire on our own heads, for the man we are judging or fearing is not present where we are seeing him. He is somewhere else, perfect, innocent that very instant. He who claims to know truth, let him live truth. Let not him who has put his hand to the plow, his vision on the white Christ, look back. For he that is double-sighted is double-minded, and let not that man expect anything from the Lord, his lordship. Fear not that in giving up your sense of self you are losing your identity, for lo, you are but finding it. You are but recognizing that which you eternally are. And which would you rather be, John Doe or the Christ self? Both we cannot be. Actually, one neither puts off John Doe nor puts on Christ. For what he is not, he cannot lose, and what he is, he cannot put on. Yet this is the way it will seem to him. It will seem as though he were putting on Christ because he has estimated himself as someone other than the one. Do you think it makes you love your friend less to know that he is the one rather than that he is John Doe? Not if you love truth. Instead, we find that our friends, our relatives, our acquaintances all mean more to us than before. Our love is richer, fuller, and is not based upon personality, but is based upon the real substance itself, so that such love is enduring and eternal. Is it beginning to be seen and felt by you what a great vision this is? What a stupendous sweep to behold the nothingness of personality and the allness of the one being? I recall the value of this insight to me in a demonstration some years ago. My young child seemed ill with what was called whooping cough. No matter how I kept my thoughts based on truth, it seemed that the child would cough more in my presence than at any other time. One day, while she was sleeping, I entered the room and instantly the coughing began. Meditatively, I crossed the room and seated myself by the window. My eyes happened to fall upon a great maple tree directly beneath my vision, and all of a sudden, as I beheld the majesty of this tree with its thousands of beautiful green leaves waving in the breeze, a treatment leaped from me. And this treatment was a vision, a revelation of the oneness of all being and the nothingness of personality. Here was the tree filled to overflowing with leaves that were so close together that they were touching one another. Yet no leaf depended upon another for a single thing whereby to exist. No leaf had any influence over any other leaf, but each leaf was joined to the branch, and the branch joined to the trunk. This picture was so vivid to me that I instantly saw that no individual on earth depended in any way on another, nor could the life or harmony of anyone be influenced by another, for each belongs to the One. With this insight came the instantaneous healing of the child. Now, truth, revelation, vision, ever descends upon one with healing in its wings. The fire of God is in a consuming fire, and no one can feel this burning light, this quickening spirit, this descent of the Holy Ghost, without receiving the blessing. It is written that the sun shines on the good and on the bad alike, meaning that the sun is not double-minded, double-visioned. So also the light of divine illumination, the Holy Ghost, shines upon the plane called matter, as well as the plane of heaven. For truth sees no distinction, no difference. When speaking of his godhood, Jesus announced, "I am the vine. Abide in me, for without me you can do nothing." We do not see the leaves fastened to the trunk, but we see the leaves fastened to the vine, and the vine to the trunk. Now, as it was the Master himself who gave this illustration, it must present truth, and one must accept the vine, for one cannot come into the fullness of loving understanding except through Jesus Christ and his teaching. You will notice that they who love Jesus Christ love all mankind. Their hearts have received a glow, a divinity that is not present to him who has not yet felt the Master's touch. There is that bond, that love uniting those who love Jesus Christ, who understand his mission and his presence with us, that nothing else can ever bring. Those who understand Jesus Christ have their vision away from self, away from personality, and upon reality. When we worship Jesus Christ, we are not worshiping personality, but we are worshiping the One. For he claimed no goodness of his own, no glory of his own personality, but said, "Whatsoever things the Father doeth, these also doeth the Son likewise. There is none good but one." Now when we take a man or a woman of this plane and extol their names and look upon them as specially endowed by God to perform miracles, we are worshiping falsely. We are not worshiping God, but are worshiping apart from God. When we want the world to praise us, when we demand obedience from others or feel that we must be loyal to others, where is our vision? On personality. Let this light of insight blaze over all this world and into the hearts of everyone, that they may see the folly of authorized teacher, student, or literature. When we are authorized by truth, we need no other authorization. Do we read in the Bible that Jesus believed that only those whom he himself instructed should be considered reliable healers and teachers? On the contrary, turning to the Gospel of St. Mark, we find that Jesus rebuked his disciples for this very attitude of mind. And John said, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name, and he followed not us, and we forbade him. But Jesus said, Forbid him not, for he that is not against us is on our part. Here it is clearly related that the disciples would have practiced what is termed loyalty to their teacher, but the matchless Jesus would have none of it. His vision was ever fixed to soul that doeth the works, and verifying this unity, he further declared, And the works that I do, ye shall do also, for we are all the same being. Where shall we place our loyalty? Let each ask and answer this question for himself. But in wisdom, let us remember that no man can serve two masters. We cannot concede a personal teacher or an authorized student and still preserve our clear vision of one being. Is it not appalling in this day of wonderful revelation that one can believe that another has the right to control him spiritually? We would not consider having another dictate to us as to the food that we must eat for breakfast or for the manner of clothing that we must wear on certain days of the week, or how we should arrange the furniture in our rooms. Then why should we allow another to inform us regarding the spiritual books that we should read in our journey heavenward? We cannot allow others to govern our spiritual food and at the same time enjoy the presence, the guidance, and companionship of the Spirit within. This is the conclusion of Chapter 1 of The One by Lillian de Waters. The One by Lillian de Waters, Chapter 2, The Message of Truth. An illumined one has written the following inspiring words, quote, Before the eyes can see, they must be incapable of tears. Before the ear can hear, it must have lost its sensitiveness. Before the voice can speak in the presence of the masters, it must have lost the power to wound. Before the soul can stand in the presence of the masters, its feet must be washed in the blood of the heart. End quote. What a world of spiritual food is contained in these words. Before the eyes can see, they must be incapable of tears. What does this mean? It means that before the inner eye, the eye of soul, beholds for you the oneness of being, your outer eyes, your senses, must be closed to grief. Why do we weep tears of grief? Is it not because of the notion of personality? Have we not wept because of what people said about us? Because of the way they treated us? Because of the sense of injustice or hurt that we felt? Have we not wept over our own shortcomings and failures? Have we not wept because of the seeming separation of our loved ones? Can you see now that all such grief hinges upon the belief of a separate self, a selfhood that other than the one? If we are seeing and knowing the omnipresence of the one being, would there be any reason for tears or grief? When we have in us this wondrous vision of the one being eternally at hand, our eyes will be healed of tears. Before the ear can hear, it must have lost its sensitiveness. Have you not received a message from another that caused you to feel great fear, worry, misery? Have you not heard others speak when their words acted like a knife entering your heart? Have you not listened to gossip, slander, criticism when it made you confused, fearful, sick? As soon as your inner ear has heard the voice of the Master, the message of truth, then your outer ears will be dull of hearing. We must be insensible to the hearing of error, knowing there is but one voice which speaketh no evil, but is ever self, with a capital S, conscious of its own being. When gossip, criticism, evil tidings reach our ears and cause not a ripple upon our clear perception of the one and only being, then we find our joy is complete, is lasting, and no man can take it from us. Before the voice can speak in the presence of the masters, the illumined, it must have lost the power to wound. Is your voice the voice of a personal being, or is your voice the voice of truth? When we speak from the consciousness of the one being and the nothingness of any other being, then our voice carries no power to wound, for it is truth speaking to truth. Before the soul can stand in the presence of the masters, be conscious of its own glory, its feet must be washed in the blood of the heart. Does this mean that we must suffer troubles, agonies, fears, griefs before we can lay claim to a clear perception of the one? Does it mean that experience leads us to truth? Experience cannot add to that which is already complete. And as we understand this aright, we are bathed in the glory of the Lord. We are illumined. We are inspired. We are glorified. When we see the nothingness of experience, the nothingness of a selfhood apart from God, the nothingness of a world of evil, the nothingness of birth, sin, sickness, death, then our eyes are incapable of tears, our ears have lost their sensitiveness, our voice has lost its power to wound, and our hearts have been bathed in the glory of the light. Great men and women of this world may have been led away from the upward vision, the high watch, by not holding fast to the consciousness of the one and only being the same in every heart. As soon as the vision sees oneself as greater than another, greater in power, greater in intelligence, greater in authority, that instant one has turned from the light and the glory of truth. To see the nothingness of a personal being is to walk in a world of charm and magic, a world of delight and glory, a world peopled with heavenly beings. When we see the self of each one as the one self with a capital S, then we no longer struggle to outshine, for he who believes himself in any way superior to his fellow men is incapable of discipleship. All the power there is, all the intelligence there is, stands present now for you and for me alike, and no one can lay claim to it more than another. Now all the dream of experience asks is for someone to believe in it, someone to bow down and worship it, someone to tremble because of it, someone to run for fear of it. And if one believes in a personal man, he is believing in the dream, and the dream will dance him into trouble until that hour strikes for him when he sees the nothingness of matter, the nothingness of mind, and the nothingness of personality, and the nothingness of the dream itself. Then he is the God-crowned man. Let us acknowledge truth in all our ways. Let us acknowledge impersonal man at hand now and here. The way of redemption is not by way of destruction. I came not to destroy, but to fulfill, spoke he who had bathed the feet of his disciples. We are not to eradicate evil from the world, nor is the world to be healed by right thinking or people to be made over through methods of concentration and adjustment. Redemption of the world consists not in healing, but in knowing the truth. Redemption consists in knowing the nothingness of the dream rather than in changing the dream. The way of healing sickness on the material plane is through the device of drugs, knives, climates, etc. This is but changing the dream. The way of healing on the mental plane is through the device of thought, the control of the body through the mind. This, too, aims to bring about a change in the dream. For instance, from the dream of being sick and in trouble to the change called healing. Changing dreams, while helpful, does not bring the millennium on earth, nor does it take away from the face of the whole world the notion of birth, sin, disease, death. Nothing but knowing the allness of truth and the nothingness of a separate world, the nothingness of a dream world, can bring full emancipation. We have been taught truly that man actually is a perfect being living in joy and harmony in heaven, and that this earthly existence is like a dream state, fleeting, chimerical. Now, the actual state and the earthly state can be clearly understood through the illustration of our daily experience and our nightly experience, which illustration is as follows. A man partakes of a hearty meal and lies down in comfort and strength to indulge in quiet sleep. He dreams, and in his dream he finds himself walking along the street very weak and hungry. So feeble is he, so weak from lack of food, that he needs to support himself by resting against the side of a building. Now what shall he do? How can this man in the dream be helped? One can readily see that the dreamer is laboring under a delusion, for all the time that he believes he is walking on the street hungry and weak, he is in some place else. He is in his own room, warm, strong, comfortable. He believes he is where he is not, and he is not consciously aware of his right and true position. Thus, man on earth, wandering in a world of birth, change, sin, sickness, death, believes he is where he is not, and he is not consciously aware of his actual, changeless, perfect state in heaven. It is asked, how is spiritual treatment given from the absolute position? That is, if one does not look to drugs or to right thoughts for healing, then how does one think or act when he practices from the absolute position? Continuing the illustration of the man on the couch dreaming that he is walking along the street faint with hunger, we will assume someone standing by his bedside awake, someone who has the power to know the nature of this man's dream, and who sees him weak and faint from lack of food. How shall this man who is awake help the man who is walking on the street faint and hungry? The answer to this question will also answer the one, how does the practitioner who knows the truth help the man who comes into his office sick and weak? Imagine in his desire to help his hungry friend that the man at the bedside rushes into the kitchen and prepares a hearty meal of delicious food, which he brings on a tray and places by the sleeper directly at his elbow. Here, then, is the sleeper dreaming that he is famishingly hungry, and here also is his friend aware of his dream and placing food directly at his elbow. Will this be of any avail? None whatever. For the man who is dreaming that he is hungry has his eyes closed to the plate of food that is touching his elbow. If only the man who is walking on the street, hungry, could but know of this plate of sumptuous food. But how can he, since he is but fiction, illusion? Now, since there is no such man existing as the hungry man on the street, he cannot partake of the plate of food. And the dreamer, the one lying on the couch, why should he partake of food when only an hour previously he dined sumptuously, and is not at all weak and hungry, but is strong and perfectly nourished? Is it clear to you thus far that the man in the dream, hungry, cannot be fed, for there is no such man, and that the man on the bed does not need to eat because he is not hungry? The idea of bringing the plate of food to the bedside of the sleeper symbolizes material means of healing. That is, when one approaches a medical physician for help, this physician fixes his attention on appearances, on the sick body, and he prescribes drugs or operation for the body. He looks at the picture and applies his help directly to the picture. Again, suppose that the man at the bedside of the dreamer has a little more insight into the situation than this, and he thinks, now it will do no good to place food at the bedside of this dreamer, for he is not actually hungry. He only believes that he is hungry. I cannot help him directly. That is, I cannot help him by forcing the food into his body, for he really does not require food. but I can help him indirectly, as long as it is only belief. If I can change his belief from being hungry to the belief of finding and eating food, he will then have his problem solved. So the man awake, standing at the bedside of the man asleep, delivers a mental treatment, paying no heed to the body of the dreamer, but fixing his attention upon his mind. He speaks to him silently like this: "Do not stand at the plate glass window of that bakery and starve for food, but go right into the shop, sit down and eat. You will then feel well and strong again." Without a doubt, it is pleasanter even in a dream to sit at a table and eat dream food than it is to stand weak and hungry without. But our point of consideration is, how shall one deliver help from the absolute position? We have heard that as a man thinketh, so he is, inferring that all one has to do is to change his belief, and he can be as he will. Now, with such a conception of life, a mental practitioner would not attend to the picture as does the medical physician, for he believes that the way to change the picture is to produce a change in the mind of the patient, and then the picture will change automatically. Using the device of changing thoughts in the mentality has brought better conditions to many, yet it can be readily seen that changing the earthly dream from sickness to health, from poverty to plenty, has not done away with the dream itself. For so-called sickness, sin, birth, change, death continue in this world as previously. Now, what else is there for the man at the bedside to do? If he does not provide actual food for his friend or deliver mental treatment to his mind, then how shall he help him? For his desire is to take away this false belief and deliver to him a happy, peaceful experience. The question is, if I do not use drugs, material means, directly upon the body of one who claims sickness, and if I do not direct my right thoughts to his mind, endeavoring to change his thought from sickness to health, then what is the way? How shall I proceed if I ignore both the body and the mind of the patient? The words of the master physician are still vibrant in this world today. Know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. One immediately asks, but how can I know without thinking? Take ye no thought, for in an hour when ye think not, the Son of Man cometh, the truth is revealed to you. How can one know without thinking? This question may be answered by asking another. How can one get into a mirror without getting into a mirror? When you wish to see how you look, you stand before a mirror, do you not? There is no labor attached to this. You do not put a hole in the mirror to make room for your reflection. You do not have to throw yourself at the mirror or put forth any effort whatsoever. You merely stand still before the mirror, and it is done. Without acting, without thinking, there you are in the mirror. How can one know anything and still not think? Now, the mind is like a mirror. It reflects, and when one knows truth, it has nothing whatever to do with his mind any more than there is a connection between a person and the mirror. But the mind reflects intelligence. And as one gets into the mirror, so to speak, without effort or strain, so does one know the truth without an actual process of thought taking place at all. This is what is called spiritual consciousness. Take ye no thought. You do not go to the mirror to see how or why that image of yourself is there, for you cannot find out. The picture in the mirror is not coming out of the mirror. The image in the mirror is seen there because you are standing before it. And likewise, true thoughts come not from the mentality, but are seen and felt in the mentality because one is standing before the light. This is the great principle of reflection which enables us to see ourselves as we are, see ourselves in the finished kingdom. Look unto me is the command of the superworld, the message of truth. Turning away from all else, one looks steadfastly into heaven, reality, and immediately his mind is flooded with thoughts of love, wholeness, abundance, joy, peace, and glory. God is the Holy Ghost, the great light, and as man looks into this light, what does he see? What can anyone see who looks into the white mirror but himself? And so man sees himself, and his mind is lighted, and his body is lighted, and still he has been thoughtless. To see clearly that thoughts of truth do not spring from the mentality, that knowing truth is not a conscious mental process, but is the act of truth itself. To look to soul, to the only being there is, rather than to attend to one's mind, is to come into a clear vision, a new country. To see that thoughts of truth come from truth, soul, and not from mentality, is to experience great joy and freedom. We should surely have and enjoy true thoughts with no more labor than we breathe the air or expand our lungs. The act of truth is not a motion, not a process, not a method, not a procedure. It has nothing whatever to do with time and space, but it is a self-consciousness. True knowing itself, spiritual consciousness. Therefore, to know the truth does not mean to deliberately, consciously use the mind to formulate thoughts as one would grind out coffee from a coffee mill. But knowing the truth is that paradox wherein it is stated, "When I am weak, then am I strong." Here now we have the man standing by the bedside of his sleeping friend, wishing to help him, wishing to use the highest practice, and hearing the words of the all-knowing Jesus, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." What is the truth that this man is to know for his friend? He is to know, first of all, that his friend dined but a short time ago, that he is not hungry, and that he does not need any food. This is the simple truth. He does not know this in order that the man will stop being hungry, but on the contrary, he knows this because he recognizes that this is the truth. As he sees the man in the dream wandering on the street, weak and hungry, he knows that it is only a picture man having no substance to it whatsoever, for there is his friend right before his eyes, lying quietly and peacefully on the bed. Therefore, he is not deceived by appearances. He does not go out into the dream and take the dream man into a dream restaurant. Neither does he direct mental treatment to his mind, thereby to assuage his hunger. But he stands still, facing the truth, knowing that both the dream and the man in the dream are nothing, and knowing the safety and wholeness of the man where he actually is. The dream, which is nothing, being only a picture in the mind of the sleeper, then ceases. With this illustration in mind, we come now to the practitioner of truth, who is before him a patient asking for help. It may be that this one says he is sick or sorrowful or fearful. Such is the picture man who approaches the one who is to help him. The practitioner, using the highest practice, has taken for his foundation, "The truth is all there is, and besides the truth there is nothing else." Therefore, who is this that approaches him? Is it a being called John Doe who is sick and in trouble? How can this be if the truth is all? The practitioner is not deluded into administering treatment to the sick body or the sick mind, but with vision fixed clearly on the truth of being, the rock of ages. He knows the nothingness of mortal mind and mortal man, and he understands the oneness and omnipresence of perfect being. He knows that when he looks upon what seems a sick man, there is no such man present any more than there was a hungry man in the dream. Therefore, the highest practice, the mount of fulfillment, is simply knowing the truth, knowing the allness of perfect being and its reflection, and knowing the nothingness of any other being or belief. Such knowing is not an operation of mind or a process of thought, but is spiritual consciousness, self-conscious of the allness and oneness of being. Why is it that the one called patient will find himself restored to harmony? Because of the nothingness of his dream and the oneness of man. When one man knows the truth, it includes the one called patient, for man is one. This oneness is the love of God. Man knows the truth not with cold reason and logic, but with love and faith. It is as one looks with the vision of a pure heart, as one recognizes the Jesus Christ presence, as the one and only that he is able to see the nothingness of dreams, of shadows, of fiction. The practitioner clearly perceives the nothingness of personality, the nothingness of any self separate from God, the nothingness of any mind but the divine mind or intelligence, which does not dream, the nothingness of any body but the body of truth, the image and likeness of God. It is our ignorance of God, truth, that brings forth these dream pictures of good and evil, right and wrong. But the understanding of the one being enables us to lay hold upon reality, which is at hand untouched by any dream about it. Now, spiritual man is not in this apparent world any more than you are in your dream. When you dream that you are across the ocean, you never actually leave your couch, nor does spiritual man exist in a false world, a world of birth, change, and death. Spiritual man is never born, is never sick, and never dies. When in your sleep you believe that you are falling off a precipice or running from a wild animal, the precipice and the wild animal exist only in your mind, in your belief, and so are wholly mental. Your fear, your suffering in the dream is entirely a mental state, self-created, although you are ignorant of this fact. You do not actually leave your couch to fall off a precipice. You leave the couch in belief only, which is the same as not leaving it at all. You see this clearly and accept it without protest. So in this world, when man reports pain, sickness, trouble, you must also clearly perceive that it is in his mind only, self-created, although he is ignorant of this fact, while all the time he is a perfect being living in a perfect world. Man does not actually leave heaven, the perfect state of life, in order to experience pain in a false world, and to live in a false world in belief is the same as not living in a false world at all. This insight shows one clearly the nothingness of mind, the nothingness of belief, the nothingness of experience, and the nothingness of false man. This is the conclusion of Chapter 2 of The One by Lillian de Waters.
I hope you enjoy this spiritual audio. Like, share and subscribe for more.